Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, and this is going to be kind of our Halloween special, I guess. It's one of my favorite times of year. The leaves start turning yellow, they start falling, there's some jack-o'-lanterns out there, and I know it's Christy's favorite time of the show. Favorite time of the year, and I'd like to welcome to the show Christy, our co-host. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm well. It is so not my favorite time. But it'll be fun to talk about it.
Yeah, well, I thought this was a great opportunity. Frank from Jacksonville is coming back on, and he and his wife just had a excellent time down in the Orlando area where they got to experience Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights, Mickey's Not So Scary, and then take a cruise. Welcome back to the show, Frank. How are you doing?
Thanks, Steve. I'm doing really well. I should point out that we don't really have a change of season down here. We're just excited because we finally got down under 70 degrees one night this week, but that's about the closest we get to fall.
Yeah, it's been pretty hot down there, hasn't it?
Yeah, we've had, I think we're probably done with our 90-degree days. At least I hope we are. But it's been nice for the last week or two. But yeah, we had a pretty hot summer.
I've been over to Hawaii before Christmas time, and they really do it up in the islands as far as Christmas decorations and everything else. How about in Florida for Halloween? I'm guessing it's pretty popular down there. Do people really decorate up for the holidays too?
Oh yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, you'll see it all over in the stores and all the different places around town. And I don't know. I think the way it falls this year, it's still daylight savings time when on Halloween itself. So we still have daylight until about 7:30 at night. So that's kind of nice for the little kids that are going out and trick or treat and that sort of stuff.
How about you, Christy? Do you guys get a lot of trick or treaters at your house?
We do. And my son loves handing out candy. Although this year he's actually expressed an interest in going out trick or treating. So we'll be doing that for a little bit. Last year, I think he went to like 8 houses, and the year before he never even went out at all, and so he doesn't get to eat a lot of candy, so I think that makes him want to go out and pick it up less. But yeah, it's a thing. I just don't like skulls. They had that Halloween show that we posted on the Facebook page that was airing that Disney did, and my husband was like, yeah, this is just not your time of year, is it? It isn't. I don't like skulls. I don't like creepy things. That Halloween Horror Night sounds like my absolute nightmare.
We did both Halloween Horror Nights and Mickey's Not So Scary, and we're sort of one of the few couples that we know that actually like both. We know some folks who really like Halloween Horror Nights scary stuff, but won't go near Mickey, and some folks that think Halloween Horror Nights is just the most horrible thing they've ever heard of, but love the Mickey's party, but we kind of like all that stuff.
Good. There's got to be things for everybody.
One of these days, we're going to get the show right. Last time we recorded too late for you, and this time we're talking about skeletons and pumpkins and all that kind of stuff. So,
yeah, but Christmas is right around the corner because all that stuff will be out as soon as Halloween goes away.
Yes, thank goodness for that.
Because we're actually going to Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party like the second weekend in November. So, it's already getting ready to roll.
Wow.
Yeah, that's amazing. How fast they turn their parks over. I didn't actually get to watch the show, but I think I've seen like some of those stop motion ones where they go through and they show how they change the parks over really quickly. So pretty amazing. Well, let's jump in the show today. So Frank, you and your wife headed down to Orlando here. Was it last week?
It was actually the week before last.
Okay, the week before last.
So we left here on a Thursday morning. It's a couple hours drive to get down to Disney World, and so we spent 4 nights at the Boardwalk, which is one of our home resorts at DVC. And so the first day when we got down there, we were just sort of getting settled and getting everything together, getting in our room and all that. And then we didn't do anything around Disney that day. That was the evening that we went to Halloween Horror Nights. Okay.
Have you guys ever stayed at Universal too and some of the resorts there?
Yeah, we've done that actually a number of times over the years. We sort of fluctuate we always have Disney passes, but we tend to get Universal annual passes every few years. And if we have the annual passes, then we'll usually stay there for a few days and take advantage of some of the stuff there as well.
Okay, so let's talk about Halloween Horror Nights. I've actually never been to Halloween Horror Nights. I've been to Mickey's Not So Scary out here on the West Coast, but not out there on the East Coast. But talk about Halloween Horror Nights a little bit. So is it similar to Mickey's Not So Scary where it's a separate ticket that you buy for the evening, and then is there a certain point where you can get in, where you might be able to get in a little bit early, like Mickey's Not So Scary? Do you know?
Yeah, so it is a separately ticketed event, and it's basically Universal's big event of the year. I think they really do much more for Halloween Horror Nights than they do like for Christmas and other times of year like that. They really go all out with it. And so the thing about Halloween Horror Nights is that there are a lot of different ways to do it, and I think it can be really confusing for people who are trying to figure out, well, what's the best way to approach this? Because if you buy a ticket for Halloween Horror Nights and you go for one night, this year there were 10 different haunted houses, a bunch of different scare zones, all these things to go through. But it's nearly impossible to get through all those things just with a regular ticket on one night, just because the lines get so long and things get so busy. So there's all sorts of other strategies that people will use to try to get in earlier or do other things. And we have, in fact, done all of these over the years. So they will also sell on top of your ticket what they call an express pass, which is basically a fast pass for the haunted houses. And then that will allow you to go in what's basically like a fast pass line and get into the houses quicker to do that. They have another thing called Stay and Scream, which is for folks who have a ticket, either an annual pass or a ticket for the day to Universal Studios. And what they will do is the park closes at 5. And then if you also have a Halloween Horror Nights ticket, you can stay in the park and you can get started doing the haunted houses earlier than the regular people who don't get in until about 6:30. And then another thing that we've done in the past years is they actually sell something that's been called various things. Most recently, I think it was called a frequent fear pass. And we did one of those a couple of years ago because we knew we were going to be down there for a few days. And that actually will get you into Halloween Horror Nights on multiple nights. And so you can go one night and do 3 or 4 of the houses and then go another night and do the other ones and try to get through all of them that way. But this year we actually pulled out the stops and did the probably priciest, but I think the easiest way to see everything, and that's what's called an RIP tour. And the reason we did that this year is because we had my nephew had his 18th birthday, and so we were taking him with us to Halloween Horror Nights, and he was really excited about it. It was the only night that we could go, and we wanted to make sure that we see everything. And so this is basically about $150 extra on top of the ticket for getting into Halloween Horror Nights itself. But what that gets you is basically a guided tour with right into every haunted house, see all the scare zones, do everything. It also gets you free valet parking, gets you a little reception with hors d'oeuvres and drinks before you start out going through all the haunted houses. And it really, you almost feel bad because you're walking past these people that are in these 60 and 90-minute lines to get into the haunted houses, and they just take you right up to the entrance and right in. But again, for just being there the one night and having it be a special occasion for our nephew, we felt like we would spring for that, and so we did that this year.
That is very nice of you, and that sounds like something I absolutely don't want to ever go to.
Yeah, I was thinking that sounds like a good Christmas present for you next year, Christy. A frequent fear pass.
I will not go. I will not utilize that gift.
Well, I got to tell you that, and the most fun part about the whole thing, and I'm sorry to my nephew because I'm going to say this, he screamed like a little girl throughout the whole evening. It was just so much fun being there with him.
And he wanted to go?
Oh, yeah. He had been once when he was younger, and he was one of those kids growing up that was always like scared of everything. He wouldn't go on roller coasters. He wasn't sure he liked scary things. But I think he sort of felt like, well, now I'm 18 and I'm a man and I'm going to go do this. And we went on some – the other thing that the RIP tour gives you is front of the line to all the rides. So we went on some of the roller coasters that he'd never been on before. And again, he screamed like a little girl through all of those, but, had a great time. But he wanted to, so we were happy to take him.
Yeah, you're the perfect uncle to take him out and do that.
That's right. Yeah, take him out, wear him out, mess him up, give him back to his mom. Tell my sister, sorry, he's yours.
Well, we won't go through all the different houses in the scare zones, but could you talk about just like the houses in general, how they work, and maybe one of your favorite ones this year? Yeah,
so the big thing this year was they did a house based on Stranger Things for the first time. And I don't know if either of you are fans of the show, but we are, and it's got a large following out there. And in fact, I was talking to one of the folks that works at Universal, and they said it's really been crazy this year because lots of people who would never even dream of going to Halloween Horror Nights were going just to see the Stranger Things house because they love that show. And apparently the wait was 90 minutes at its very lowest and sometimes bounced up as high as 2.5, 3 hours for that house. just because so many people wanted to see that. But basically, the houses are all sort of set up the same. Some of them are in tents, some of them are in like big soundstage buildings, but essentially you walk through and they do a fabulous job in terms of the detail and all the props and all the things that they put in there. They also do a really good job with sound, with having fog effects and other sorts of things to sort of make it even spookier. And then sort of the stock in trade they have is basically the jump scare. So you're walking through, and let's say that this house is based on vampires. Well, there will be vampires that jump out from various places to scare you. And that was actually one of the really funny things, because just when you think you have it figured out, they do something different. And this actually happened to my nephew. So we're walking through one of the houses, and he thinks he knows where the person is going to come from. What he doesn't realize is that it's a mirrored wall. And so the person is actually on the other side of where he thinks he is. And when he notices that, obviously, he jumps and screams. But they use all sorts of different themes to the different houses. One of them this year was based on there having been this virus that turned everybody into zombies, so it was sort of a zombie house. There was another one where humanity's been wiped out and the plants have taken over. And so that was actually a pretty creepy house, because you'd see what looked like a wall of vines, and then suddenly some of the vines would come out towards you. So that was kind of cool. And then they do some houses based on movies that people would know as well. So Stranger Things, which is the TV series, they also had a Poltergeist house, a Halloween 4 house. So, Michael Myers is obviously fun. And one of the things that they've done with that before is you'll go into a room where they have like 20 figures dressed as Michael Myers, and most of them are mannequins, but some of them are real people, and you don't know which are which. And so that's kind of fun too.
Oh, yes. That sounds lovely.
Yes. And then the scare zones are basically what they do with areas out in the park is do some things to decorate out there, and they have different themes in different areas. And one that they had that was really cool this year was they had one called Vamp 85, which was basically supposed to be New Year's Eve in New York City in 1985. And they had ghouls and zombies wandering around that looked like Prince or Michael Jackson or something like that. And then every so often they would do this sort of dance thing on stage to a big song from the 80s, like they did it to Thriller one time. And there were some other things that they did, and that was kind of fun. And then they'll do other things just to sort of freak you out. They had one area that they called the Revenge of Chucky area, but Chucky was actually not the thing that was all that interesting about that. What they had in there was basically a life-size operation game. And they had an actor who basically had his head where the head would be, and then they had what was clearly not him, but a mannequin of some sort. And then this evil scientist who was basically playing operation on what was supposed to be his live body and pulling.
No, why is this entertaining? Why is this entertaining?
I don't know. People like this stuff.
I was listening to another podcast, and one of their advices was to go into the scare zone and, just get a drink or something like that, and just find a place to sit and watch the people and their reactions. And I think that would be kind of a hoot to watch that.
The funniest thing that I saw was they have areas where there'll be like ghouls with chainsaws, and they'll like sneak up behind the people and pull the chainsaw and make the noise, and they'll run and scream. But one of the guys was actually in a wheelchair. And so the sound of the chainsaw comes from a completely different level than you expect it. And there were these girls that had just bought their drinks, and this guy snuck up behind them and turned on the chainsaw, and they just flung their drinks in every direction and started running away, screaming and laughing at the same time. So yeah, you just got to sit there and watch the things that people do. It can be kind of amusing.
So on top of that, you said that the rides are going as well. Is this a good time? I mean, I'm guessing the main reason why people are going here is for the houses and the scare zones, and maybe to take in a ride or two. But is it pretty easy to get on the rides then, or how for that?
So we had some time to do that. We went on Revenge of the Mummy, and we were the only people in the car. We went on Harry Potter's Escape from Gringotts, and again, just sort of the wait time was how long it took you to walk to get to the load area of the ride. There really wasn't any wait at all, and so it's probably not the best thing to do if you're just there for one night and all you want to eat, and you want to be able to see all the Halloween stuff. But yeah, really, you can just get on anything you want to pretty quickly if that's what you're interested in doing.
Well, before we move over to Mickey's Not So Scary, I guess any other tips, Frank, since you've been to it, for somebody that might be going the first time?
I think what they really need to do is get online, because there's a lot of websites that are sort of dedicated to Howling Horror Nights, and they'll go through, these are all the ticket types. These are all the ways that you can get in. This is probably the best thing to do if you're only going to go for one night. One other thing that actually one of the Universal folks told us is if you really can only go one night and you don't care when it is, actually the least crowded time to go is they do it a few nights in November after Halloween. And they were telling me that basically not a lot of people come at that point. And if that's a night where you just can only go for one night and that works for you, that may actually be one of the least crowded times.
Perfect. So then you guys head back to Boardwalk. Did you guys Uber over there? Did you drive over? How'd you get over?
No, we drove over because we had our car, so we just drove over there. And so then sort of slept in the next day because we were, out well past midnight doing Halloween Horror Nights. Then on the next day, which was a Friday, we having some lunch over at the fountain at the Dolphin, and then went over. We had some fast passes for over in Animal Kingdom because my wife really likes the safari ride over there, so we did that. Then did some of the other rides over there, and then had dinner with a few friends of ours at Blue Zoo over at the Dolphin, which is, again, right next to the boardwalk there. In the afternoon, I also wandered over to look at some of the food and wine stuff after we spent some time in Animal Kingdom just to sort of check out what was going on over there. We didn't actually get to spend as much time at Food and Wine as we usually do, but sort of got to hit the high points, and they have a free pass holder magnet that they give out, so we got that and add that to our collection. On Saturday, which was the next morning, we went over to Hollywood Studios because we wanted to see all the new Toy Story Land stuff, and we had been able to get a fast pass for the Alien Swirling Saucers, and then we just did walk on for the Slinky Dog coaster, and that was really a lot of fun. I was actually very pleasantly surprised at how much we enjoyed that. It's actually a little bit more intense than the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, if people know that comparison, but really still fine for kids and really was a lot of fun, and we enjoyed doing that. The one thing that they, I think, miscalculated is the fact that a lot of the line is outside and not under cover, so I'm not sure that's going to be great in the middle of the summer or when the rainstorms start coming in, although I guess if it rains, they probably have to shut the coaster down anyway. But really thought that was a nicely done area, and we enjoyed seeing that. Then, again, had dinner with some friends that night down at Disney Springs at the Boathouse. And then on Sunday, which is the day we went to Mickey's Not So Scary in the morning, we actually did brunch at the California Grill, which I don't know if you are familiar with that or any of your listeners are, but that's really a fantastic experience. It's actually kind of comparable to Palo Brunch on the Disney cruise ships because they have a buffet with a lot of different items on it and then a menu that you can order things off of. It's obviously not Italian-based like Palo is, but it's the same sort of idea, and it's really a nice brunch, and obviously you have great views out from being up there on the top of the Contemporary. And the other thing that comes along with that is if you are interested, if you have brunch there, they give you a little ticket where you can come back that evening and watch the fireworks up from their observation deck if you're interested in doing that.
Is it hard to get reservations for brunch?
I think so. From what I see from some of the message boards, I mean, we're sort of Uber planners, and I'm doing my dining reservations 180 days out and all that sort of thing. But I think it may be because I think they only do it on Sundays, so it's really just a once-a-week sort of thing.
Have you done that, Christy?
I haven't. No. I was just writing it down.
Because I know you are a Palo Brunch fan, so you have to put that on your things to do, right?
I know. I was just in my head going, when we go in April, can I add it? I don't know, because I only have one Sunday, and I don't know that I can go there during that Sunday. So literally, that was all that was just happening in my head. Wasn't being a very good listener, I guess.
No, that's perfect. I mean, that's why we're here, so that people can learn and they can plan their next vacation, right? But anyways, so then you guys go to Mickey's Not So Scary. Now, you've been before. Right. And
yeah, we've been a bunch of times before.
Okay, and so what were your thoughts of it this year, I guess?
We really enjoyed it. We went with a couple of friends of ours, and they met us over there. We had an early dinner at the plaza so we could be in the park and sort of be ready to go. I think they really do a great job. They do a lot of things that I think are a lot of fun. The park is obviously decorated to the hilt with all the Halloween decorations, and then they have a number of special things that they only do during the Halloween party that are just really a lot of fun. They have a Halloween parade that runs twice a night, which is different than any other Disney parade. It has things that you won't ever see in any of the Disney parades. It starts actually with the Headless Horseman, and it is a real person on a horse carrying the jack-o'-lantern head that walks down through Frontierland and down Main Street. And then the parade itself has, as you might expect, a lot of floats that are sort of more dedicated to the villains. There's a lot of Haunted Mansion floats and folks walking and dancing in that parade as well. They also have some of the candy-themed things. So Vanellope and Ralph from Wreck-It Ralph have their own little float as well. And then the one thing that if people haven't seen this and they're not worried about being spoiled, I would look for on the internet, because there's YouTube videos, which is they have the Gravedigger dancers. And these are people that are dressed up as gravediggers, and they're carrying shovels. And some of the maneuvers they do with those shovels are just amazing, especially where they in synchrony scrape them along the ground and make sparks come up. And it's just really cool to see at night.
They talked about that on that Disney special, the special that they showed for the Halloween, getting the parks ready. So they had the Gravediggers on there. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Another thing that they have is, you may be familiar with the Dapper Dans who sing on Main Street. Well, at the Halloween party, they're the Cadaver Dans.
Oh, God.
So they're all sort of, in the ghoulish makeup. And they still do the, great 4-part harmony, but it's Halloween type songs, and they sort of roam around the park. For kids, they have like a Halloween themed dance party in Tomorrowland, which is nice. And then once a night, they do the Happy Hallowicious fireworks, which for me is really one of the best fireworks shows that Disney does. It's really a lot of fun, and they've added in a lot of the projection effects that they can do on the castle now. It's one of the fireworks shows that actually uses the perimeter launch sites as well as the regular launch sites. So it's really quite a spectacle and pretty interesting to see. And then the other big thing that they've been doing for the last couple of years now is they have a stage show in front of the castle based on, I'm blocking the name of the movie with the 3 witches.
Hocus Pocus.
Hocus Pocus, yes. So it's a Hocus Pocus themed show, and not only do they have the witches from Hocus Pocus, but they have some of the other villains that you may not get to see all that much. They have Dr. Facilier, who comes out and does a song. Oogie Boogie comes out and does a song. Maleficent comes out, and so that's a really kind of fun stage show, and people enjoy that. And then underlying all of this, obviously, is they have trick-or-treating throughout the park. And so, we ended the evening with more candy than we could ever eat in 10 years, because one of the people that we were with is big into getting as much candy as she can, because she gets a lot of trick-or-treaters at her house, and this is how she sort of manages that process. She comes home, and she's hardcore. I mean, she's got extra bags in her backpack that she's filling up with candy, because they're happy to give you pretty much as you want. But they have those stations sort of set up all around the park. And then obviously a lot of rides are open as well, so if people want to do that. And this year they actually added some special effects to some of the rides. One of the things that we did that was pretty cool is for Pirates of the Caribbean, they actually added some live actors both in the queue and in the ride as you went along. And that was really kind of fun, because it added sort of a different element to the ride. They also did some spooky light and sound effects on Space Mountain and on the teacups. So they tried to add a little bit of extra Halloween goodness to some of the rides.
Have they ever changed? I know they haven't changed the Haunted Mansion up, but have they ever changed Space Mountain up at Disney World? Like in Disneyland, they do Ghost Space Mountain about this time of year. Have they ever done anything like that down there?
They've never done anything like that. What they did for Halloween is they actually did change the soundtrack, and they changed some of the lighting in there.
Okay.
But they've never really done any major overlays or anything like that I'm aware of.
Have you guys been on Ghost Space Mountain by any chance? Or
We've not. We've done Haunted Mansion Holiday out in California, but we've never been there when they were doing the Ghost Galaxy.
Ghost Galaxy, that's it.
When we go, we usually when we go at Christmas time. Now, we did a few years ago get to do the Star Wars overlay on Space Mountain in California.
That one's awesome.
Hyperspace Mountain.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah.
That was really a lot of fun.
That one's 10 times better than Ghost Galaxy, just for whatever it's worth. At least in my book, at least. That one's really good.
I enjoyed it. Yeah, we really had fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I liked it so much about the T-shirt, so,
So did you guys get dressed up for Halloween when you guys went?
Yeah, we did.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we did. Some years we do, some years we don't. This year we decided to, and so we put together basically 60s hippies costumes. So we had flowers in our hair, and the pink tinted sunglasses, and Mike got this peace sign medallion at a thrift store, and bell bottom jeans, and my wife had this peasant dress and sandals. And it was kind of funny because the people that are either our age or older loved it, because they knew exactly what we were doing. I think a lot of the kids were just looking at what the heck are they wearing. But
we don't know this Disney character.
Yeah, that's right. But it was still kind of fun. And a lot of people do dress up, a lot of kids and adults. And I think the theme this year, as best I could tell, was the Incredibles. We saw a lot of Incredibles families around the park, but there were obviously lots of other people dressed up in different costumes as well. Just so people know, Mickey's Not So Scary is again sort of a separate ticket. What they will generally do is, if you have the ticket for Mickey's Not So Scary, even though the party doesn't start till 7, they'll let you in at 4 o'clock. just with that ticket, you don't have to have a ticket for the park for the day. So that's kind of nice because you can get in for a few extra hours and do some other stuff before the party starts.
I think I heard this year, if you're a DVC member like you guys are, Frank, you guys could get in even earlier than that, I believe.
Right. You could get in, I think, at 2:00.
Wow.
We didn't get there that early, but we had read that we would be able to do that if we wanted to.
Right. So, I mean, if you're not an annual pass holder like you guys are, I could see where, that adds a little bit more to the day, I guess, if you're a DVC member to be able to spend time there. So
spend $30,000 in DVC, you can get into the park in 2 hours.
It's like for the $10,000 or $20,000 you pay for the Disney cruise, you can save $10 on the movie.
Right.
You want to see. It's economics, right?
Well, after the miles and points show and the 18% versus 2%, I'm not sure we learned much, did we? But anyways, I'm digressing there. Anyways, so people going the first time, any tips or recommendations you have for people going to Mickey's Not So Scary the first time, Frank, since you guys have been there quite a few times?
I think it's really just making sure you have a plan for when you want to do the major things, because as I said, there's 2 parades. The first parade, I think, tends to be a lot busier, and then they do the fireworks, and at that point, a lot of people leave. So if you're able to stay later in the evening for like the 11 o'clock parade, it's going to be much less crowded. Just sort of depends on how old your kids are and whether or not they can last that long. And then the other thing is, I think, dressing up just makes it a lot more fun, and it's always fun to see people dressed in costume. Again, the one thing you have to deal with, and I kind of felt bad, there were a couple of people who had some really extravagant costumes, like we saw Star-Lord and Gamora with the full costumes, but they must have been dying because it's still pretty hot in October in Florida, and some of those heavier costumes really don't do as well in the Florida heat in October even.
From there, let's segue on to the cruise. Did you guys leave the next day after that, or did you guys spend another day at Disney World before you went on the cruise?
No, so the next morning was Monday morning, which was when our cruise left. So we, again, kind of slept in a little bit because we'd been out of the Halloween party the night before, and packed up the car and drove over to Port Canaveral, which is just about an hour from Walt Disney World. So it was pretty easy getting over there. And I think we got there probably at around 11 o'clock or so and went and parked in the parking garage and then over into the cruise. The one thing that is different, and they were actually warning us about this as we were starting to go through security, is apparently Disney Cruise Line has just changed security companies.
Yeah.
And the new company appears to be quite a bit more meticulous about what they're looking at and looking for. So, for example, this has never been the case before, but on this trip, anyone who had anything bigger than a cell phone, so an iPad or a laptop or a game system or anything like that, had to actually take it out of their luggage like you would going through airport security. And so they were being more meticulous with those sorts of things. And so I think the end result is it seemed to take us a little longer to get through security than it had in the past. But I think that's just a reflection of the world that we live in, and they're trying to be a little bit more careful with these things. And I can't complain about that.
I need a global entry for my cruise port.
Yeah, I have global entry, but obviously, unfortunately, that doesn't really do
I know.
really much good there.
Where's my fast pass line?
Yeah, your RIP line, Halloween on the High Seas. So,
so although I guess it was one of your recent shows, one of your guests was talking about sort of this separate security line for people that come in on the buses. I actually didn't know that existed, but I'm going to try to find that next time.
It's just on the other side. So it's just the other half of the line. So you wonder, so if that's making any sense. You know how it's a half circle there? It's just the other side of that half circle. So I don't even know if you could get around to getting to that level or to get to that side if there was no people have to give permission for somebody to get over there. Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, it's but still again, in that.
It is what it is, and it's in the end, it's not nearly as bad as a lot of airports I've been to. So
they are having people take out, so now if you have water in your water bottle, you have to dump that. So just for people to know, they're also having people take out their food, and this one's really important if you're traveling with little kids or you just have snacks. If it is any food in an unsealed, so like factory seal container, they're making them throw it out is what I've heard. So I don't know if that's going to be there forever. That could be really bad for especially with some people with special needs kids that have to eat certain things. So I'm curious how that's all going to play out. But I would say put that in your checked luggage right now until that policy gets a little bit changed. Like we always have loose cereal for my son. So now you're going to want to make sure that's in the luggage because Disney's not going through it. It's just the security company until something else changes.
Yeah, and this was just a 4-night cruise, and so for us that means we're not checking any luggage. We're just sort of got our little rollies that are coming in. And so one of the things that I did, because I had heard about this, is I had a cooler in the car, and so rather than taking all our candy from Mickey's Not So Scary and trying to get it on the ship, because I knew they were going to want to look at it all, I just left it in the car in the cooler during the time that we were on the cruise. But if you don't have the ability to do that, I understand that people that are coming like from something like that, they're going to actually want to look at all your candy and all that sort of stuff, which is going to be nuts at some point.
Right.
Before we talk about the specifics of your cruise, let's just talk about Halloween on the high seas.
Yeah, we had actually booked it opening day with a placeholder that we had, a year and a half ago or whenever it was that booking opened for this. So this was one that we'd had planned for a long time because we wanted to do one of the Halloween cruises.
So was this your first time doing a Halloween cruise, or had you done one before?
It turns out it's our second time because, as we've talked about before, we have these sort of random cruises that we end up going on at the last minute. And last year, the cruise that we took from New York up to Canada, which we booked like a few weeks before when a special rate came out, turned out to be a Halloween cruise on the Magic. So we'd done that before.
So you kind of knew a little bit about what to expect on the cruise.
We did. Yeah, we did. But it was still a lot of fun.
Is there anything you register for in advance on a Halloween cruise?
I don't think there's anything Halloween related. I think it's the usual sort of, the character greets and the other things that you would sign up for ahead of time. But I don't think that any of the actual Halloween events require that you sign up for anything ahead of time.
What kind of cabin did you have?
So we sort of like to try out different things in different places of the ships. And so what we had booked was an ocean view cabin on deck 2 because we'd never stayed on deck 2 before. And we thought, well, that'd be fun to see what that's all about. And it sort of turned out to be a mixed bag because actually my wife really liked being down close to the water and sort of being able to look out and see things from kind of a different point of view. But for whatever reason, I think we were in the wrong location because it turned out to be pretty noisy down there.
Deck 2 is just noisy. So I don't know if even being in a different location would have helped. And
what's funny is when we did we stayed on deck 2 on the Magic and it wasn't bad at all. But on the Dream, it was just really, there was a lot of banging and clanging, and it was all right. We still had a good time. But that was just one of the things that we weren't quite expecting that was a little bit different. But we had a wonderful stateroom host and really had a great experience as far as that goes.
Well, let's talk about the Halloween part of the cruise itself. Is it something that they kind of talk about what you kind of experience? And I guess, is it something that, like, right as you check in, is it kind of Halloween decorated, or is it just one special day, or how does the cruise kind of go?
So you come into the Grand Foyer and there are Halloween decorations everywhere. And so there are,
there's a big
pumpkin
tree.
Heads. There's a big tree, which they call the pumpkin tree. And this has actually changed since the cruise that we took last year. Because last year when we took up the Halloween cruise, on the first day of the cruise, the pumpkin tree is bare. And then over the course of the cruise, the pumpkins start to quote unquote grow from the pumpkin tree until they're sort of full blown towards the end of the cruise. On this one, and I gather on all of the Halloween cruises this year, they've changed that to where the tree is already in full bloom with the pumpkins. But what they do is on the first night at, I think it was at 7:30, so it's sort of between dinner show sort of thing, they do an event where sort of everybody gathers in that area, and they have one of the cast members who's dressed up appropriately for the occasion come down and basically tell the story of the pumpkin tree. There's spooky music, and then the pumpkin tree comes to life. It actually has a face on it that lights up, and all the pumpkins start to flash different colors and things like that. So that's kind of an introduction to the Halloween cruise. The other thing that they do that's pretty evident is that on the open decks, like on deck 4, where there's a lot of portholes that are opened up out to the outside, they put overlays on those, either pumpkin heads or spider webs or things like that on all of those windows. So there's all that decoration as well.
We actually saw the Halloween pumpkins going up on the windows when we got off of our Labor Day weekend cruise. So when we were exiting, the people getting on after us were actually a part of the Halloween on the High Seas cruises. And so we had seen the little decorations. Mm-hmm. They're fun.
And so that's, I think, the main Halloween thing for the first night and the first night. And then the next day, which was our Nassau day, is basically the day, at least on the Dream 4 night, that they designate as Halloween Day. So the Navigator will have all sorts of jack-o'-lanterns and other things that look Halloween-like on it. And they have several different events during that day, both for kids and adults. So they will have sort of costume parades for the kids during the day. They have a costume party for the adults back in the adult area late at night. And then they also have trick-or-treating for the kids during the day. And they sort of like at Mickey's Not So Scary, they have 6 or 8 different candy stations set up all around the ship. And the night before in their stateroom, the kids all get a little trick-or-treat bag. And so they can go around and collect their candy and do all that sort of thing.
I assume they give everybody a bag, though, not just the kids?
No, just the kids.
Oh.
I think adults can get one if they ask for them. But
so you didn't have a bag in your
room?
room?
We didn't have bags in our room, which was okay. We had more candy than we knew what to do with from the Halloween party anyway. So that's the big Halloween day that they do a lot of different things. But then one of the other things that they do for Halloween, and they do this a couple of times during the cruise, once late at night and once in the afternoon on the sea day, is they'll have special showings in the Walt Disney Theater of The Nightmare Before Christmas. And they call it Sing and Scream because they show the movie with all the lyrics to the songs on the screen, and they encourage people to sing along with the movie. And then at the end, Jack and Sally show up and do a little meet and greet. So that's the other kind of big Halloween thing that they do on the Halloween cruise.
Did you guys go to that?
We didn't this time. We had the previous time that we had been on a Halloween cruise, and that was fun.
Okay. Do they do like a show at night, kind of like a pirate show or the Freezing the Night Away with Anna and Elsa? Did they do anything like that up on deck?
Not really for Halloween, because then the Castaway Day is actually Pirate Night.
Okay.
And so they do all the pirate stuff and the fireworks and all those things like they would on any other cruise on that night. And I got to tell you, there's some people that are dedicated, because we saw people, lots of people in Halloween costumes, and then the next night they all had on their pirate costumes. So they were bringing way more suitcases than we were going to bring. Sure. And some of the Halloween costumes were really elaborate. There was a family on the same deck as us that I think we had 3 or 4 different staterooms, and 3 of the women in the party, which I assume were either moms or grandmas of the kids that they were with, did just full-blown Sanderson sisters outfits from Hocus Pocus, and they were just spot on. They really put a lot of work into that, and that was cool. But
each one of those dresses must have taken up a bag in and of itself, I think. So.
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And my wife and I will sometimes dress up for Pirate Night, and her boots alone that she uses for her pirate costume was a bag of their own. It's crazy.
You know what? You kind of went back to, dress up for the Mickey's Not So Scary. It kind of adds to the fun of the whole occasion and everything like that. And
yeah, it really does.
Yeah, and I think I really felt that on the last cruise that we went on, which we didn't bring anything for Pirate Night. I love Halloween, but I never really get dressed up. But I kind of felt out of place. Like our next cruise, I'm going to bring some pirate stuff. I want to be part of it, I guess. So yeah.
I was going to say we have a couple of friends that don't dress up for Halloween, but they decided to bring their Tampa Bay Buccaneers jerseys because those have a pirate on them, and that's what they wore on Pirate Night.
Oh, that's perfect. Well, what about the food? Do they do anything different, like in the dinners? Do they add any like Halloween themes to some of the food at all, or is that different at all?
A little bit. It's not really a big deal, but they do have some, especially some of the desserts that'll be a little more Halloween looking and that sort of thing. But for the most part, it's pretty much the standard food that they have throughout.
Okay. Did you guys do anything else during that Halloween day that you remember doing? Like, it looks like they had like a masquerade party and
right. So yeah,
pumpkin
so that's
carving
like
and some other things like
costumes.
that.
Yeah, they had some of that other stuff. No,
okay.
Actually, it was interesting. It was our Nassau day, and a lot of times we just stay on the ship in Nassau, but we actually got off this time and we booked a tour separate from Disney, one that I actually had found through TripAdvisor that was basically a culinary and architectural walking tour of Nassau.
Wow.
And so actually got to go out and see a lot of places in Nassau that we'd never seen before away from the port. Some of the old churches, some of the government buildings, just some of the other really kind of neat stuff around there. And then they also had like 5 or 6 stops along the way in local restaurants where we got to have some food and drink and different things like that along the tour. And that was actually a lot of fun. We really enjoyed that.
I haven't been to Nassau yet, but you kind of hear the same thing over and over where people don't want to get off. But doing a tour like that kind of gets you away from the tourist area, probably. There's a lot to see on Nassau that people probably haven't seen, huh?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the problem with Nassau is the the area right around the port and maybe 1 or 2 blocks in is just all shops and people selling things, and they're fairly aggressive about being out in front of the stores, trying to hand you things, trying to get you to come in, et cetera, et cetera. But, once you get past that, it's a real place where people live. And actually Nassau has, as I've learned, a pretty rich history, going back with the British a number of years. I mean, the old cathedral there has some really interesting memorials and gravestones to British sailors from 100, 200 years ago who had settled there and had died, et cetera. So there's really some pretty neat stuff to see.
And the gravestones going with the whole Halloween theme kind of just added to it, didn't it?
Right.
Any of the food stand out that you wanted to talk about that you guys got to experience?
Yeah, so I think what they do with the 4-night cruises is you have one night where you repeat one of the restaurants in the dining rotation, and that's usually Pirate Night. So we decided we wanted to go ahead and do each of the rotational restaurants. And so we did Enchanted Garden the first night, we did Royal Palace the second night, and then the third night, which was Pirate Night, we did our dinner at Remy. And then on the sea day, we did Apollo Brunch and then did our dinner in Animator's Palette. One thing that was different this time that we had never done before is we had dinner in Enchanted Garden the first night, which is, I think, our favorite restaurant in terms of just the look and the feel. And our server was telling us that they've started doing a buffet breakfast in Enchanted Garden in the morning. And so you actually, for breakfast on this cruise, had 3 choices. They were doing sort of an order off the menu in Royal Palace. They were doing the usual buffet in Cabanas, but then they were also doing a buffet down in Enchanted Garden, which was sort of a hybrid because you'd have a server who would bring you your drinks and those sorts of things. But then they had a buffet set up. So we did that one morning, which was a little bit different. I think it was basically the same food that you get up in Cabanas, but it was a little calmer atmosphere, a little less crowded. And so we enjoyed doing that. And then our Remy dinner was fabulous as usual. And we had a chance to chat with the chef who we've met before and had a really good time with that. And then Apollo Brunch was really great too, as it always is. The only thing that we're sort of disappointed about was Apollo Brunch happened at the same time as one of our favorite Disney cruise events, so we had to miss it. And I don't know if folks have talked to you about this or if you've seen this before, but it's Jack Jack's Incredible Diaper Dash.
Oh, yeah.
Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, I have seen it, but you know what? We've never talked about that, so go ahead and talk about it.
So Jack Jack's Incredible Diaper Dash is really one of the most fun things I have ever seen almost anywhere, not just on a Disney cruise ship. So basically what they do is in the grand foyer there on the ground, they set up essentially a little race course, and they spend most of the cruise, because usually it's towards the end of the cruise, trying to recruit parents with crawling babies. And basically, as they say, we're going to race those babies. And so what they'll do is they'll have, sometimes there's 2 or 3 different heats because they have so many babies, and they will set them up. And usually there's a parent at one end kind of holding on to them, getting ready to start. And then there's some other family member at the other end trying to entice them to crawl across the floor to the other end and win the race. And it's funny because they will theme it. We saw it one time on a Marvel cruise, and they put little Marvel stickers on the back of each of the kids. So one of the kids had Captain America, one had the Hulk, that sort of thing. and it's just really a lot of fun. And one of the things that they always say at the beginning, which always makes me chuckle, is remember that this is a race for crawling babies. So if your baby stands up and takes his or her first steps, we will all applaud and go crazy, and then we will disqualify them. But it is just so much fun because some of these kids, the crazy things that they do, some of them will just sit there and not want to move a muscle. Unfortunately, some of them will cry a little bit. Some of them will go about halfway and the parents are real excited. They're going to win. And then they just decide it's time to stop and I'm going to go crawl towards something else. It's just a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I think the one I saw, one of them did that. They got halfway across and the parents thought they were going to win, and then they turned around and went back the other way. And yeah, it was just, yeah, that's pretty cool. So you guys missed that this time, but
yeah, unfortunately, missed that. It was during our Apollo Brunch time, but I can't complain about the Apollo Brunch because that was fantastic.
So you guys have the late dinners, right?
We do.
Yeah. So doing brunch and then still making that late dinner at Animator's Palette that night, that's doable. Yeah, that was doable. It wasn't too bad, and the schedule of events on this cruise actually set up really nicely. So we were really happy otherwise with how things went. We actually only went to one of the shows because there were some movies that we wanted to see. And fortunately, they were running the movies at a time where we could go to the movie and then still get to our dinner.
And so we saw Christopher Robin, which we had not seen before, and enjoyed that. And then we saw Incredibles 2 for the second time and Ant-Man and the Wasp for the second time. And those just all happened to be on the nights of the shows that we weren't super interested in seeing because we'd seen them before. But then we did get to go to Beauty and the Beast on the last night, which is a really great show. And we try not to miss that one if we're on the cruise with that.
Any other entertainment after dinner that you guys went to?
Yeah, so there was a magician who did an adult show at night down in Evolution, and we went to that and enjoyed that. He also did a family show on one of the days where we decided to go to a movie instead. We went to a couple of the adult game shows that they did. There's one called Snippets where they play a little snippet of something and you have to guess what it is. They did Match Your Mate, which is basically kind of the newlywed game with different couples. And so we did some of those things as well. And then the other thing that we did, I almost forgot about this, but I wanted to really thank you for this because it wasn't something we knew about until we talked about it. You talked about it on one of the podcasts, is we went to the Vista Gallery and did the Dave Avanzino name art. And so my wife and I got our names done, in his style with the Disney Cruise lettering. At least we ordered it.
So with the gallery there, you can do that with any name you want to do, or how do they work that on the ship?
So basically they have a booklet that has every letter and all the different versions of the letter that you can use. And so it's everything from, so for A, you could have an A that looks like the animator's palette A. You could have an A that has Captain Mickey on it. You could have an A that looks like it's on a pirate map, etc. And basically they charge by the letter. And so you can get as many letters as you want, and the price just goes up depending on how many letters you want. And you can pick which character you want for each letter. They'll actually sort of mock it up for you. They have a big bin with actual cutouts of each of the letters, so you can put them out and sort of play with them and say, well, no, I like this F better than that F or something like that. And they'll sort of mock it up for you, and then they fill out all the paperwork, and apparently then they send it out to him when they get back. And what we've been told is that he will get back with us by email, sort of with a picture of everything. This is what it's going to look like. Is this what you want, or is there something we want to change? And then actually makes the piece and sends it to you.
Yeah, he's a pretty amazing guy. I didn't realize that you could actually pick out the different types of letters. I figured it would be, one specific one based on the cruise line letters. So that's pretty cool that you have that much kind of say to kind of make it the way you really want it.
Right. It was really a lot of fun to do that. We ended up doing that on the sea day because it probably took us a good hour and a half to sort of go through all of that and pick out all the things that we wanted to do.
Oh, definitely. Well, I guess we didn't really talk about it. So 4-day Dream Cruise, you guys went to Nassau, did culinary tour and kind of the history in Nassau. The next day was Castaway Cay. How was your day at Castaway Cay?
It was beautiful. Usually I run the 5K, but I was having a little blister problem that day with my feet, so I decided not to do the run. But so we just went ahead and found a shady spot and hung out, did some snorkeling, had lunch at the barbecue, and just had a really nice day out on Castaway. It was a beautiful day and had good weather. And every time we go, I think I've said this before, they're really working on getting more and more fish in that snorkeling lagoon, and they're trying to put more items on to grow coral on. And it's really a lot of fun and a pretty good experience out there.
Have you seen the stuff about Lighthouse Point yet?
I saw that apparently that's moving forward, that the Bahamian government has agreed.
Yeah, they just.
So
I think they announced it today or yesterday that they've actually sold that piece of land to Disney. So, unlike Castaway Cay, where Disney's just leasing it for 99 years, they actually bought the property now at Lighthouse Point. So, yeah. I'm kind of curious if they'll. I mean, obviously they're going to do a lot of stuff there at Lighthouse Point, but I'm kind of curious if that'll, lead them to make some changes at Castaway Cay too. I'm not sure what that would be, but.
Well, one of the things, and this may or may not be true because obviously things on the internet, you just never know, but one of the things that apparently is of concern to Disney is that Castaway Cay, if sea levels continue to rise as they are, is going to start to sink into the ocean, whereas this new piece of land at Lighthouse Point is apparently better elevation. So is a better long-term plan. I mean, obviously they'll use both for as long as they can, but I think at least this article that I was reading said that they did have some concern internally that Castaway Cay may have to change.
Yeah, it may disappear. Yeah, Len Testis talked about that quite a bit as far as, and I can't remember, he's got the numbers down as far as like what the sea level rise is, but yeah, it would basically cover over most of Castaway Keys, and with Lighthouse Point, it's a little bit higher up, so I'm sure that was a factor when they decided to actually put the money down and buy it, so it'll be interesting.
And of course, I know everybody's just wanting to know, where are the new ships going, because I think everybody thinks that, well, maybe this means that more of the new ships will be in the Caribbean and they need another island to go to, but we'll just have to wait and see for that, I guess.
Definitely. And then you guys finish up with the day of sea before you disembark. What did you guys do that last day? You guys did Apollo Brunch, obviously, and then Animators.
So we did our Apollo Brunch. We did the name art and spent some time in the shop there and went and looked at some of the other shops. One thing, just so people are aware about Animators Palette on the Dream, is they only do one show at Animators Palette. That's the Crush show, which is the show where it's kind of like the same thing as Turtle Talk at Epcot, if people have been to that, where Crush and the other sea creatures are sort of on the screen and they interact with you at your table and will talk with you and that sort of thing. So they don't do the show where you actually draw the figures and then they turn them into a video that they show. That one doesn't happen on the Dream on the 3 or 4 night cruises, because most people are only in Animators for one night.
Perfect. Yeah, because they usually do that the second night when they do the drawing, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and then as it comes to an end. How was disembarkation this time as you guys got off and then headed back up to Jacksonville?
Very smooth. As we usually do, we just went and had breakfast in Cabanas, and then we had all our stuff packed up, picked that up. The one thing that we did that was a little different is we hung around for a little while, because our very favorite cast member anywhere in Disney Cruise Line is on the Dream, and she actually had been away and was coming on board the ship the day that we were leaving. And she and my wife communicate a lot outside of the cruises, and so we had planned a place that we could meet for a little bit just to have a chance to say hi, and we had some little gifts for her, and she was getting ready to get going for her next contract for several months. And so sort of in between them letting her on the ship and having to go do her safety drill and all that, we got a chance to talk with her a little bit. And getting off the ship was pretty straightforward. We had all our stuff with us, and getting through customs really didn't take very long at all. And then to our car, and on the way, a couple hours drive, we're home.
Well, what a great way to end it too, after, the times in the parks, the cruise, and then being able to, see someone special that you've gotten to know over the years from Disney Cruise Line and spend some time with her. That's kind of a neat way to end the vacation. Yeah.
And so then we got home on a Friday, which was nice, because then you get a couple of days on the weekend to decompress before you got to get back to the real world for most people.
I think that's like the perfect way to end it. That day at sea to kind of relax, and then, like you said, having the weekend before you have to go back to work. It kind of takes the sting off of getting off the cruise and ending your vacation. Will you guys do this again? Do another Halloween on the high seas, or?
Yeah, I think just because actually it's a time of year when the cruise fares tend to be lower. I think it's because a combination of the kids being in school and hurricane season and that sort of thing. So it's a time of year that we like to cruise anyway. We actually have an October cruise on the Fantasy planned for next year. That'll be a Halloween cruise, and that'll be great because we enjoy those.
Perfect. And is that your next? I know that knowing you and your wife, you guys are something's gonna pop up here probably next week, and you guys will be off again. But is that the next one that you have booked, or is there something?
No, we have one before that, which is the back-to-back on the Wonder in January. We're doing Galveston to San Juan, and then the San Juan Southern.
Boy, I gotta get my notes better, because I totally remember that, because that's your cruise on the way to San Juan, and then it's hers afterwards, right?
Right.
Did I get that the right way?
You did. So the Galveston to San Juan is 4 sea days, 1 port. So that's, for me,
yep.
The San Juan Southern is 4 port days, 1 sea day. So that's for her thing.
And then you guys have the ABD next summer, right?
Right. We're doing the Seine River Cruise in August for our anniversary. Hopefully the Disneyland Paris add on to that as well, because we've never been there, and we figured if we're there, we might as well see that as well.
Perfect. Well, thanks again, Frank, for coming back on. I really appreciate this. This is kind of last minute, getting on as quickly as you did so that we can get this out before Halloween. I want to wish you and your wife a wonderful time as we come into the holiday season. And when you guys get back from your double trip on the Wonder, definitely drop us a note, and we'll get you on to talk about that.
Sounds great. Thanks, Steve.
Perfect. Well, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks. You
Thanks.
Too.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show today. I really want to thank Frank once again for coming on and sharing his and his wife's experiences down at Universal Studios. at Halloween Horror Nights, Mickey's Not So Scary party over at Disney World, and also their 4-day trip on the Dream with Halloween on the High Seas. And I was hoping to get this show out, Christy and I were hoping to get this show out before Halloween so you can enjoy it with your pumpkin spice latte. But as we all know, Halloween quickly ends October 31st, and November 1st we're on to Christmas. So I hope that you're all enjoying the show with that peppermint mocha or whatever your drink of choice is now as we head into the holiday season. Well, if you've enjoyed our shows and know somebody else out there that would love to hear it, we sure would appreciate it if you would pass it on. Also, if you have time and want to go over to iTunes and leave us an iTunes review, that helps us get the show known and out to other people. It helps us expand the show to a bigger audience and get a little bit better known in the cruising in the Disney community. Between now and our next show, if you'd like to get a hold of Christy or Steve, myself, you can reach myself, Steve, at DCL Podcast over on Facebook and DCL Podcast on Twitter. You can always reach Christy at packyourpixiedust.com. Also, Pack Your Pixie Dust on Facebook and Pack YR Pixie Dust on Twitter. And if you and your family are heading out soon on your next adventure between now and our next show, all of us here at the DCL Podcast would like to wish you fair winds and safe travels as you head out on that next vacation. Once again, thanks for coming back and taking a listen, and we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.